presumably short meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission. Today is October 1st, 2018. It's about 6:33 PM. Do you have anything for us tonight, Russell?
I do. I have the minutes of the September 24th, 2018 meeting. Make a motion that we accept those as printed.
Do you have a second on that?
I wasn't here, but I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
I assume there's no more discussion, but all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstain.
If I just may interrupt you for 1 second too, before I forget, is there anyone here for Commissioners' Public Forum? So, I gotta get that in there before I get in
Do we need
trouble.
more than 2 signatures on this?
No.
No. Okay. That's all set for you, Paul. And I have the warrants for review and signature. I make a motion we accept them as follows. EJP, $2,485. That was for software support. EJP meter reader, $6,117.42. EJP meters, $1,876.26. Peter Starkus, 85 Park, 25 Lakeview, 56 Osgood, $210. Cosgrove and Blatt, $36. Beta, $51,424.54. Beta, $5,986.43. Commissioner's salary, $400. Ford Electric, $406.25, for a total of $68,941.90.
Do I have a second on them?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Have you any more?
Oh, no, that will do it.
That would do it.
Ladies first.
Okay, then we can go right into our first appointment of Veolia with an I&I report.
Come on up, Paul.
Please introduce yourself and,
I'm Paul Rodman with Veolia North America.
okay,
So we just completed an I&I flow metering study for the town and submitted the report a few weeks ago for Mr. Border to review, along with the town's new GIS that we just finished as well.
So,
yeah,
Mr. Chair, yes, last spring, I believe, you approved Veolia to do a $20,000 I&I study and install some flow monitoring devices, as well as finalize our GIS mapping of the system. This goes in line with the requirement from DEP to go ahead and have a sewer system evaluation survey and plans for improvement completed for I&I by the end of this year, December 31st. We have to have that plan submitted to DEP so that we're in compliance. It was due last year. We filed for an extension and received that. So with this work now that Paul has done, in essence, he divided the sewer system into quadrants by placing flow meters in certain areas. And from those flow monitoring readings, we can determine where the highest source of infiltration is. So we can take this information now, create a sewer system evaluation survey, hopefully submit that come up with what our plans are to fix or identify further concerns and do a little more in-depth studying and submit that to DEP for approval, and hopefully will satisfy the requirements of what they're looking for. So, Paul, if you just want to go over the results of what you found from the flow monitoring stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So the town approved the use of 4 flow monitors, but we ended up using 5, fifth at no charge, just because of the way South Sturbridge Road, the way it flowed into the pump station, the hydraulics in the manhole wouldn't allow a good reading with 4 meters, so we ended up using a 5th. Broke the town into 4 corridors, Route 20 all the way out to the Mass Pike kind of McDonald's and gas station out there. which also captured the brewery, South Sturbridge Road on the east side, and then we have Carpenter Hill, which was its own flow meter, Route 20, which captured everything from Main Street, Burlingame, Mugget Hill, in that area, and then another one off of Stafford Street, which, had everything from City of Charlton, I think Osgood in that area. What we found was Route 20 was pretty minimal flow as far as the meters at South Sturbridge recorded. So there's not really much work that you guys need to do there going forward. But the other areas showed signs of inflow primarily. Just when the few rain events that we had, even though they weren't significant rain events, it still showed immediate impact on the system, which shows signs of inflow. So that's catch basins, or more so here would probably be downspouts of houses tied in illegally, sump pumps, things of that nature. And then one of the areas also had a little longer return time to normal flow. I think that was the other Route 20 side, which captured this area, Burlingame, Mugget Hill, in that area. So going forward, the recommendation would be to take Carpenter Hill, the east side of Route 20 and Osgood, and break those down into smaller quadrants because they were fairly large. Kind of break them down and do another study in those areas to try to pinpoint, along with some CCTV and smoke testing as well, to see if we can find any, sources of INI a little closer to the metering points.
Now, when we had, it seems like Carpenter Hill Road, if that had the most increase in flow level, it's a short enough section, we should be able to do pretty much all of that
Correct.
for, I'm gonna say, not a large amount of money, and just trying to identify where that's coming from. When we had the sinkholes in the spring, you guys went up there and you CCTV'd that portion of the line then, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And that portion of the line looked fine. So that's the new line heading up from, I'm gonna say, Kozowski's farm, heading south.
Correct.
So that just leaves a shorter portion of the older pre-existing line to do from that portion down to Route 20.
Yes.
That we could probably maybe try and focus on now before we get into winter. If Paul could get us an estimate to CCTV the rest of that line to see what's there, and just to identify that there's no structural defects in the line or anything like that.
Yep, I can absolutely do that.
And then maybe next year, moving forward, we can start to look at the Route 20 Worcester Road and move up. You said that's,
The Route 20 Worcester Road on the east side was the largest area.
yeah, there's a lot of,
And it had the most pump station flow as well.
okay.
So,
And that's the area with the schools, correct? That's Route 20 heading east,
yes,
and then this whole area.
correct. Yep. Yep.
So we could maybe try and do Carpenter Hill Road the remaining of this year, identify that, get that cleaned. I'll, if there's no objection, we can pull all our customer list from Vadar, and I'll send a letter to the residents that are connected there, and remind them that sump pumps are illegal to connect to the sewer system. Because I know there's some drainage stuff going there that comes off of that hill onto some of those residents.
Well, do you wanna do the study first? Or, it's nice to know you found the problem and eliminated the source, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're looking for a needle in a haystack that doesn't exist. If you send it out, potentially, people say, well, I know they're gonna be studying the area, I'll just unplug my sump pump for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's send up the flag and, we're coming into port, I don't wanna,
Yeah, so,
not that it's a big secret, but still, you don't wanna say.
yeah, so we would do a round of smoke testing along with CCTV. So because CCTV isn't necessarily going to show an illegal connection into the system. There were smoke testing, a lot of the times you'll see it come right out of the vents the drainage vents in the top of the roof, or someone's basement will get filled up with smoke or something like that.
Yep, and then they call.
They call
So-
it, correct. I mean, we put out door hangers, you know, just because if you see smoke in your house, you know, hopefully they don't call the fire department.
Yep,
But otherwise, that's the notice that we give.
and you typically do that day of,
No, we usually do that a few days in advance.
okay,
So just so people can prepare, if there's people on oxygen within the house, or they have pets that they want to put somewhere for the day, or whatever their concerns might be, they have time to make those arrangements.
sure.
A question, Rob, on these, studying the INI,
Yep,
and didn't know if you had anything to ask them.
I guess, again, I apologize for being late. On Carpenter Hill, is it been confirmed exactly where all that inflow is coming from?
No, it hasn't.
It hasn't. I know I did take a look at the report. Seems like a lot of it may be coming from the area to where we had a breakage in those pipes that were draining the trench with the dams.
Those pipes were never broke, they were just, the drainage pipes, the relief pipes were blocked,
The reef pipes were blocked
yes.
because they were impacted with snowplow.
Where the
dirt.
sinkholes were, or just debris
Where the
that settled
sinkholes
into
were.
the ditch?
Right.
So when that happened in the springtime, when those sinkholes, when we were first found, they were actually setting up the flow monitors at that time, and I believe we talked to Paul, and Paul went up there and CCTV'd that newer portion of line where those sinkholes were, and found that that portion of the line was in decent shape. It was not a line issue.
So there wasn't, well, from my reading of that report, from what I can recall, is there is an issue on Carpenter Hill.
Correct, but not that portion where the sinkholes are.
Okay,
Were
well-
forming in the roadway.
I mean, we basically have one customer
Up
from,
there,
you know, up there, and then as it levels out, then, how many manholes there on there? 6, 8?
17.
17?
17 total.
On
Straight,
truck.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we're looking, you already investigated because of those sinkholes,
A small
from 10
portion.
to 17.
I don't think they went all the way up to.
No, we didn't. We just did
just where
the
the
two,
sinkholes were.
the two runs where the sinkhole were.
Okay.
So we
that
didn't
would
go
be-
all the way up to where the business is. We didn't go there. It was just the small area where the sinkholes were. That's all they wanted done.
Okay,
But while you were doing that, this is when you were doing the cameraing of the line?
Yes, my crew was up here with setting up the flow meters. So we just brought the camera up and just CCTV'd the two small sections of Main where the sinkholes were.
All right, and were the flows very heavy there?
No, the flows were very minimal.
No,
I-
but when you, by the time you get to the bottom of the street, the flows are heavy.
Yes, yeah, the flows are heavier down at the bottom of the street.
Yep.
So, but you also have a private pump station up there as well, which ties into the end of the main, so that also will increase in the flow at certain times depending on the
Correct,
station's
sure,
on.
yeah, yeah. But I would think if you did the INI study, is that at the bottom of the street, you must have had a constant flow.
There was a constant flow,
A
yes.
constant flow, so, and you determined that it wasn't coming from where those sinkholes were,
No.
or up above, so it has nothing to do with the pump.
Yep.
I don't know. Have you been out in the field lately?
No, I have not.
Okay. The groundwater's pretty high. Groundwater's as high as it is
Yeah.
in the spring.
it's up there.
So, has anybody looked at the manholes down towards the bottom of Carpenter Hill lately?
No.
Because, I mean, if starting from the top, we did, there was little or no appearance of I&I. But as you come down the hill, if you keep on popping covers, you're gonna physically see it.
Yes, where the sinkholes were, there was only one customer connected
Right,
beyond
yeah, I
that
understand
point,
that,
and
yeah.
then,
Yeah, but as you come down the
yeah,
hill,
you have more connections and more opportunity to add flow and
Right.
I&I and things
right.
of that
I
nature.
know there's a tough spot right there, where it kind of flattens out and then has to come back up before it gets to the intersection. Because I know when we have these large volumes of rain, I mean, there's water coming right out of the side hill, which seems like an area to where it would be suspect. So I'm sorry, but what's the plan to go from,
That's what we were talking about, whether if you want a proposal from Paul to CCTV and smoke test that portion of line on Carpenter Hill Road as your next step, and then you can try and identify to make sure that there's no defects in the integrity of the pipe. And if the CCTV shows that's fine, then we, like I said, do the smoke test and just kind of chip away and see what we find. Process of elimination.
personally, I'm a kind of guy of put the raincoat on and go out there when we've got high volumes of precipitation and high groundwater, and start popping covers. I think it can be simple science to figure out where most of that water's coming from.
Can be.
It's a possibility, and then maybe you wanna go the step further after that, once you narrow the focus down.
Correct, but if you're at the top of the hill and you've got nothing or no real significant I&I, you just keep on going down. And the manholes are what, 300 feet apart maximum?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, it should go fairly quick. Because you pop it, and especially if you do it, I don't know if you want to do it at night, but, because that's more dangerous, but certainly could do it either in the morning or the afternoon.
I think business hours are fine. I mean, if it's raining and it's business hours, you're gonna have, other than the business all the way up the top,
Right.
a lower flow than you would at night or.
Right. I know there was talking about putting that pump station on a timer. It was gonna be timed to be late at night, but I don't think it ever happened.
No.
But you certainly could arrange it so that if you already know that there's nothing going on, rather than having that come on to interfere with your observation. Is this something that our daily workers could do?
I can check. I mean, they have a lot of other stuff going on
Oh,
as
yeah,
far as
yeah.
popping covers.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, just to say, fine, take 2 hours out of the day,
Right.
between 9:30 and 11:30, pop some covers and see what's going on. Because I think what your report ended up doing, it ended up pointing out some areas to where we've got some real issues, and some areas that things are fine,
Correct, yes.
yeah. So, does the Charlton Water and Sewer, do we own any of that equipment that tests flows?
Not to my knowledge.
No, okay. So I thought a while back we bought some.
You bought a sampler, I believe.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right,
we
thank
bought
you.
the sample, yeah.
The sampler, yeah. Yeah, we don't need samples, we just, again, but stick your head in there with a flashlight and, don't stick your head in too far. But, just take a look at the flows. I think we can learn more, and the thing is then you can confine it to a certain area and say, fine, let's get in there and find out what's going on, whether it's a break or whether it's, someone with some tricky plumbing, just to drain an area. But, okay, thank you.
Anybody got anything else?
Before, Paul, a rough estimate on what it would be to CCTV, because this is a short section, correct? For you guys to come out CCTV, that short section, do you have a roundabout?
1350.
What was the number?
$1,350, $1,300.
And what about the smoke testing?
That one I'd have to do real quick, maybe
You
do
have to
some,
work up some numbers on
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Just where this is identified as a high source of infiltration or inflow, I mean, we're gonna pop covers and you're gonna see something, so
Right.
I don't think you're gonna narrow it down where it's gonna be less cost-effective to have them just start with the CCTV at this point. Because they still have to mobilize, whether they do 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet, I don't think you're gonna save that much money by doing that. And it may put this out maybe 2-3 weeks before we get that back.
My recommendation would be to clean the line first, get all the debris out. And that way, when your camera you have a nice clean pipe to look at where you can see defects clearly without any debris buildup on the walls. You can see staining of infiltration, cracks, fractures, etc. So,
Does anybody, I don't know when that part of the line was installed. Was that part of phase two?
Oh, yeah.
So that would be, that's back in 99, 2000?
That was the last phase we did.
So that was part of the schools in the lake?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know if it was before that,
Yeah,
that's all.
it's a combination of 2 and 3.
Okay.
Because really, 2 was Glen Echo, 3 was Charlton Center, then they put them together.
Right.
Because 2 didn't pass on the town floor.
Correct, until the
first
schools
time
were part
around.
of it.
Yeah. So for cameraing, is it by the foot, or is it by the day?
day.
By the day,
They typically do by the day, yes.
yeah, yeah, I see. Personally, I would like to see that we get more of a, more evidence that this is where the high flow is, and then concentrate on that.
So are you suggesting topside just manhole visual inspection, or sending somebody down inside the manhole?
Oh, no
To
send,
check
don't send
flows.
anyone down.
Okay,
No. 2 involved. This is just pop the manhole, get the flashlight up, and just check the flow in the invert, and take a good look at it. Has there been a discovery of debris that's in the line?
yes,
There has.
yes. When we went and videoed for the sinkholes, there was some debris in the line.
Okay, so that line's compromised. I mean, that thing was,
So you found
Not
actual
bad.
pieces of pipe?
Not pipe, just
Oh.
grit, sand, things of that nature.
Sandy grit, okay.
Yeah.
If it's up that high, that means it's coming from up above, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, it's
Yep,
a lot of common sense here.
yep.
So yeah, that's further than where we were talking about. That's the newest portion of the line then.
Yeah, so you only cambered between a known, a known fill-in to where the cap or whatever came off of that dam pipe?
We cameraed from one of the manholes, and there was a upstream survey
Yeah,
to the first sinkhole, and we finished the entire inspection, manhole to manhole, returned to the access manhole, and went downstream to the second sinkhole, and then finished that inspection to the downstream manhole. And that was all they had us do.
okay. Yeah.
That was very specific. That was just to make sure that where those sinkholes were, we didn't have an issue with the pipe.
Correct.
Right, and the drainage pipes
Yes,
for those dams is totally independent of our sewer line.
Mm-hmm.
They're unrelated, they're not connected.
no, those are just reliefs. So when that water follows the stone around the sewer line, it hits that clay dam and then has a bleed-off
Right,
point, so
yeah.
it doesn't cause what's happening with the
Right,
sinkholes.
so when that bleed-off was damaged and filled with dirt, has nothing to do with our sewer line.
No.
So if we're up that high, and
Yes.
say up that high is because of the
Up there.
grade,
Yep.
and if that's where you saw sand and grit and debris,
Correct.
then there's gotta be a problem between there and
Then we're gonna have to
the industrial building up there. I'm not saying that's where all of, because as far as the INI, it didn't seem to be a
It
heavy
could be
flow
two
there, did it?
separate problems.
Exactly.
So what do we have to do to get the line flushed or jetted first?
I'll draft you something and email it to you.
Perfect.
Okay,
Will you just do it in steps? How much it'll cost to scour the line, flush it, and then what it'll cost to camera,
Correct.
and go from there?
Yep.
And we're gonna, seeing that there's debris that far, I'm gonna say, like Mr. Lennox said, up the line, just to do the entire line to that commercial building.
Sure.
and then in the meantime, I mean, it's gonna take you a little while to put that together. Hopefully at our next meeting, we can have that.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks. That's not till the 21st, or the
And then,
27th.
in the meantime, we can pop those covers and
Yeah,
visually do.
I'll
do
talk to Keith and
inspections
see if he can,
And narrow down the focus potentially, but with that new information of sand and grit and that uphill portion, changes a lot of things.
I know some towns where they have lines that don't have great pitch to them. They'll actually have sewer haulers dump at the high end, just to, flush it out. And, obviously, you'd like to find a hauler that does tight tanks, then there's like nothing in there. Have you ever used clear water to flush a line?
Like from hydrant source or from a
Well,
truck
either
source and then
hydrant or
just
you actually
dump
have a
down?
tank that come in.
I have never, no.
No.
But we use our jet routers as well, where it's
Yeah, it's a lot of labor
eventually
to
the
it.
same
Yeah,
process.
unless you got your camera on it, and then it's serving a dual purpose. But you usually, when you jet, you don't use your camera.
No, we
At the
clean
same
it
time.
first and then we'll camera after it's cleaned, or we'll follow the jetter
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, we're in.
Yeah, I think so. Unless you guys have any more questions for Paul, we'll just wait till, again, I'll talk to Keith, see if they can, because the groundwater is high now, ask them if by the end of the week they can get out there and pop a few covers going up the hill away from Route 20 and see if he sees a start point or an end point to where the flow either starts to decrease or whatnot, and we'll wait to get that estimate from Paul, and we'll have that for your next meeting.
Very good.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you, Paul.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next meeting's not for 3 weeks, so we should get all
We
close
should
by
have,
then.
hopefully have quite a bit of information
Yeah.
for you, yes.
Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the 2019 water and sewer meeting dates, and we remind everybody that we're already a couple of months into 2019.
Fiscal year 19.
Yes, fiscal
This is
year.
calendar year 19.
Oh, this is,
No,
okay,
yeah.
let me be corrected.
Yeah, this is calendar year.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you look at the second page that Sue put together, the only real conflict we have to keep an evenly spaced schedule is on May 20th is the annual town meeting. So if you want to meet twice in May, you'd have to meet, because the 27th is a holiday, we'd have to meet on the 6th and the 13th.
Don't you usually have a scheduled meeting on the 20th, just in case there's some business?
I
that
believe
you
they
have to
have in
address before
They
the-
have in the past, but we didn't have to this year.
Okay, I know it
The
wasn't
Board of
this year.
Selectmen does.
okay. I thought Sewer Water did the same thing.
I believe they
but no.
did, but I'm
Yeah,
not,
we've had a short meeting, whatever, even meeting at 6 or something like that to get it in before the 7 o'clock town meeting.
right. I mean, I think you could if it was necessary, but I'm pretty sure that if anything that we have to have done for the 20th for the annual town meeting, we can have done by the 6th and have it approved.
Okay.
And then if need be, we can always post something for the 20th.
Well, why
If
not?
something
Why
different
not?
comes up.
Yeah, why not keep the agenda light and
Yeah.
do it at 6
Yeah,
o'clock?
I think that's far enough away that we can
Yep.
make a decision when it comes closer.
And then the only other conflict is special town meeting in October. That date isn't as set as the annual, so depending when the Board of Selectmen schedules that, because of the holiday, that might fall on the 21st, which puts you in the same scenario. We're either meeting 2 weeks in a row, either well, you can't meet the 14th because of the holiday, so we'd have to meet the 28th and the 4th. So we can just play that by ear as well when we get to that point and determine if you want to just meet once that month, or if need be, you can have a quick meeting the same night as special town meeting.
I make a motion, we accept the proposed schedule as printed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on them? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Next, we have the police department water connection.
Yeah, so in our discussions with some of the meetings we've been having, pre-construction meetings with Albanese Brothers, police has had a representative there, and they brought up the possibility of connecting or extending the water line that's going up Masonic Home Road to the overlook far enough to get in front of the existing police department so that they can connect when water's available. You'll see I have there's a memo here from Robin on behalf of the Board of Selectmen asking us for a recommendation if it's advantageous to have this done at this time. So Chris McClure did so one of the benefits is we could have Albanese Brothers, who is the construction company for ExxonMobil extend the line the additional approximately 250 feet to the police department at their unit pricing. So they forwarded us their unit price schedule for the contractor, and Chris did some takeoffs to determine what the estimated cost would be to extend the line that far. And that includes all the way to curb paving at the end of the settling period, so. Chris's estimate with a contingency is approximately $72,000. That's,
Where would this money be coming from?
the town, wherever they take it from.
Be Robin's responsibility with
yes,
the
'cause-
general fund or something to do that?
Yes, yeah, I don't think they're looking for us to help fund or anything in that nature, they're just, because it's a possibility and it can get done, is it reasonable for them to take advantage of this now, if the cost seems good, to have the contractor do it in this fall while they're here?
What's the plan to put in the police building once the new public safety building's built?
That, nobody knows that?
Who knows that?
Whether it continues to remain a public building where other offices move there, or whether they sell it to be a commercial building for somebody else, who knows? But the availability of water at that building will be a benefit either way.
Are there problems with the current well?
My understanding is it has some pressure issues, and as far as the well keeping up if there's quite a bit of usage.
I bumped into Max and had a conversation with him about this.
Okay.
And he said there's several different problems with, the current well. One is a pressure issue, like Peter said. Another is just the odor and the taste of the water. Not that it's chemically bad for you, it's just off. So nobody naturally wants to drink water that's stinky and smelly. And then the other, probably most important issue is it's heavy in iron and minerals. So as a result, it's wrecked a lot of even things like the toilets and some of the plumbing. So it's definitely something that needs to be on the radar for a fix. And after talking with him and looking up the cost that's attached in this proposal or estimate, I had the thought of, because we don't know about the public safety building and the timing of that, or if it ever happened.
Right.
And none of us have those crystal balls. We do know one thing, the police department currently does filter water, so that is a cost. The continual cost of maintenance on the system down there will eventually become more of a burden than if we just said, right at the anchor tee, that's going into Masonic Home, if we were to run a line, and we're only talking about domestic water to the property, we're not talking about fire suppression, so it's only 2-inch.
Okay.
If we ran that 2-inch line right along the property line, street property line, in the dirt off the road, all the way down to the building, then we could accomplish the goal of servicing that with the water. Probably, I'm gonna guess, cost of maximum 12 to 15,000, I'd say. As opposed to running a full 8-inch line all the way down and having to repave and, you know. The only disadvantage would be, we don't get a fire hydrant in front of the police department, but at a savings of almost $60,000, I'm sure that no one's gonna object.
Yes.
Got your mind reader.
I like the idea of the savings, but I think it's short-sighted as far as the long term of, we have the opportunity to put it down there, which should get put down there. But I really want to back up like 6 steps. I'm looking at the memorandum from Robin here, and it says, "You informed me that you were going to have McClure Engineer look at the cost benefits of making a connection both ways," which I relayed to the board last night. Had you decided this, Peter? Did we decide this?
I did. I asked Chris to do this based on the request from the police department, to get the selectmen the information, yes.
Because so, does McClore's bill lie with us, or does it lie with?
I haven't received that bill yet. When it does, I'll talk to Robin about it. And
And
because
police
it was,
department,
and
yeah.
because it was for them, for the police department,
Okay.
I'll ask
All
her
right,
to
fair
cover
enough.
that.
Fair enough.
I think that, doesn't that building actually fall in the municipal building committee?
Probably.
So maybe defer
Bring it to
that to
them.
them. Because I know in the past for things like insulation and, I think maybe even some issues with the well, they paid for that out of the municipal building
Okay.
budget. So there might be some room in there for that and worth running that by them.
Okay.
Looking at this map here, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the outline of the police station, the property line to the left, that piece of property, I believe it's the subject property to where the new safety complex is proposed.
Yes.
So, and that's, if they're doing the safety complex, and it's, how are they talking, 22,000 square feet? It's huge, 24,000 square feet. They're definitely gonna need fire suppression.
Yes.
So that's why that 8-inch line would certainly, come into play there. And I don't see any reason for the water line coming up Masonic Home Road as far as development goes, because Masonic Home owns the property almost all the way down
Yep.
to where, in fact, past the entrance of Charlie Crossing. And on the other side, you've got 4 houses or 5 houses. And I believe we've already gave a preliminary go-ahead for the Charlie Crossing line.
Yep.
And that's gonna dead end, so, if water's gonna come to this area, this is where it's gonna come from, which would be Masonic and then going down. The good news is, it certainly would, the grade would certainly help with the pressure that's there.
Yep.
Because it's a little bit
Yes.
suspect.
Or because of their usage, they could just do a small booster pump in their basement. It wouldn't be anything.
Exactly, yeah.
Anything crazy. So again, this would just be to get the water to their property line, and then they'd have to pay, there'd still be another charge for them to actually connect the building. And they're aware of that. But the bigger part is, again, like Mr. Lemansky said, to be able to get this 8-inch line installed now, it's there for the future, it's there if and when that next piece of property gets developed, whether we develop it, whether the town purchases it and does a safety building, or whether Masonic Home, because it's zoned for village district, if they decide to do something on their own over there in the future. It's just, the water's that much closer and that much more appealing to kind of attract new growth.
Well, I agree with you, but to the tune of spending $70,000 on it, if that second part of your conversation or statement is true, that it would be, then that cost would be borne by Masonic Home and not the town, right?
If we don't purchase it.
If we don't purchase it. If we purchase it, if we go ahead with it, it's a totally different story. And I understand that's a what if, and therefore, the only difference in my proposal would be the short-sightedness of potentially, and I don't know what the distance would be from that anchor tee to the property line. It's probably about, I'm gonna guess, 225 feet. It would be the cost of a 2-inch line, 225 feet. So you would potentially lose that. But that's not even a situation that's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
So again, the interesting part is for the 8-inch line, their unit price is $105 per foot. So that's kind of the interesting part, and whether or not that's more cost effective than what you could do. I don't know in their contract what the 2-inch line unit price is. So
Well,
that's-
like down on,
Yeah, you'll be able to save the paving if you put it off the shoulder of the road, possibly.
yeah. Well, the 105 is, I think, what's Berry Corner, 125?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's what,
The 105?
yeah. So the unit
That's
price.
the 8-inch, yeah.
Yep. I think on Berry Corner Road, it's closer to 125, isn't it? I mean, it's a good
Yeah.
price, but I also think that if we were to do this, if we were to say, okay, we're definitely going to put in that 8-inch line, I think given the circumstances under which it exists, being there's no variables in that roadway. There's no gas, there's no water, there's no sewer.
There's sewer.
Where's the sewer?
Go up to the
Is that a
police
pressure
station.
line coming up?
I thought the sewer, Pete, splits. It comes out of the main driveway and takes a right to the pump station there.
Right.
There's a pump station. So, and there's no sewer line between the upper entranceway and the lower entranceway, because at the lower entranceway, that's where the sewer then goes downhill to Charlton City, because Masonic Home splits their discharge.
Right, but the police department's connected to sewer.
They are connected to sewer. Do they
They
pump?
I'm not sure. They
I-
must. I'm not sure how they're connected
Okay.
to sewer, I
Yeah.
just know they're, so so if that's the case, they probably run, because there's no manholes down the remainder of the road, they might run along the same way that you're talking about running that 2-inch line.
They potentially could, and I guess that's some information that we definitely need to know moving forward, because
Right.
now are we gonna make the company pave shoulder to shoulder when they
Yes.
put that line in?
Yes, I
So if
believe,
they put the 8-inch line in, then they have
Yes.
to pave shoulder to
Curb
shoulder.
to curb. Yep.
So then that means the new public safety building will definitely have to go down gradient to tie into sewer, because they won't be able to pump up like the police department does, if they
Correct.
actually are.
But how far, where that, not having the site plan in front of us, where they're looking to put that building is actually closer to the lower
Yeah.
sewer line anyway, so they probably wouldn't come back uphill.
could be, right, could be a
They'd
straight
head
shot
out that
across the
way
street.
towards that other sewer line.
Okay, so, one question I did ask Max as well is, and it's probably the most important question that directly relates to everything we just discussed. Is it a night and day situation? Can you need that tonight, tomorrow? How long? And he said, well, it's an issue, it's been an ongoing issue. You know, it costs me out of my budget to maintain the system and filter, but it's not something that needs to be fixed tomorrow. Do we wanna look at a long-term solution? Absolutely. And, I think we have a lot of things coming up that'll help make that decision. Advancement of the public safety building coming online, yeah, that's one big one. Because if that's going in, we're extending the water line down there, problem solved. If not, now we look at short-term fix. So,
So what we could do is we could ask the contractor to leave us a 2-inch stub at near the cap in front of the overlook to the shoulder. That way there, if we wanna do a 2-inch in the future, we can just grab that and head to the police department and see what happens over the winter and do it at that time.
yep,
If
on the
that's what-
on the downhill side of that gate valve,
Yep.
so that if we ever have to work on that.
Again,
2-inch.
if we, what I'd like to do is say at this, again, because we have some information, but we don't have all the information. We can just, well, I'll put together a memo to the Board of Selectmen saying at this time, because it doesn't seem to be a priority, maybe it's not the best time to do that, but here's a cost estimate to do an 8-inch in front of the police department, and if they decide it is, then they can make that decision on their own. And they can take, again, they can take the data and see how it works for them.
all set with that?
Sure, I'll
So,
put
Just
that
one other
together.
thing, I think if Southbridge was involved, I don't know if they would agree to a 2-inch extension.
That
of
far.
Single property. Yeah, but, you know, who knows what's gonna happen in the next 6 to 8 months, so.
Next on the agenda, we got Valley Green Grove, the site plan. What can you tell us about that, Peter?
The planning board's bringing up their hearing again, I believe it's next week or the following Wednesday, and they're soliciting comments from the board if we have any regarding the Valley Green Grove site plan. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of it with me tonight. If you want to stop by the office, I have a full set of plans there, you can review them. Initially, they're interested in connecting to water and sewer, as we've discussed before. They'd like to connect to water off of the 12-inch line on Route 20 and bring it into their property. They show a connection right about where the turnaround is across from In Situ Form. And they're gonna have to blast through that big hill and get the water into their site. And as far as sewer goes, they're asking to discharge domestic sewer only to Old Worcester Road and tie into our existing infrastructure there.
You mean, when you say domestic, that's only lavatories for the help
Yes,
that own the property, but no industrial
no,
whatsoever?
no, and again, that's been in my discussions, it's domestic only. If you wanna talk, domestic only probably is not an easy sell, but it's an easier sell to allow them to connect. If they're gonna talk about any processed wastewater, it's a whole nother animal.
Sure, sure.
And we're gonna have to really know, because much like happened with the brewery, you have an idea of what you're gonna be getting, but you really don't until it starts flowing. And because we can't even look at other communities to see what they're getting, I recommend that to keep it easy, to keep it simple now, let them connect domestic only.
Why are they asking to connect on Route 20 instead of Old Worcester Road?
Old Worcester Road isn't there yet. I believe their time frame is to open up in phases, possibly, if everything goes well, by the end of next summer. There's no guarantee that the water line on Old Worcester Road will be there at that time inactive.
Mr. Chairman, Peter, I could be mistaken. I thought during that meeting, Heather somewhat addressed the Route 20 connection as far as the volume of water that's in that pipe.
Yeah, and correct. In one meeting, Heather said that the extension going down Old Worcester Road is not adequate to provide fire suppression at this time. That's why that's not gonna be, the schools still have to keep their own fire suppression systems. Just connecting to town water on that 8-inch line, there's not enough flow there to provide adequate fire suppression to those buildings. So that's another reason after talking to Heather, that if they connected to Old Worcester Road, there's not, depending on how they design their system, there may not be adequate flow at this time. Route 20 is a 12-inch line with a lot more flow.
So what about a water age issue then on Route 20?
What their plans are is to do I believe it's a 3 million gallon cistern system that will take in all of their roof runoff and whatever else they can do to recycle water into this big cistern. With that length of pipe to charge that 12-inch line from North Side Road to their site is approximately 25,000 gallons per day. They can, whatever they do not use, they can bleed off into that cistern. And they have to take a certain number of gallons per day to make sure that the water age stays to where it needs to be. And they know that.
Oh, they're aware of that?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, so whatever we determine the water age issue to be, that's the number.
Much like when we ran the water line to here, and you have the blow off on that hydrant right there, or when Harrington opened their building up and they had the blow off there at that time to keep the water age where it needed to be. It's a cost that they're gonna have to figure in and account for and make sure it happens. Initial discussions.
Okay. I would favor that we advocate to them that they gotta use the 8-inch line and have their fire engineer determine how that source is going to be able to meet the regulation they need as far as their fire suppression. because it sounds like their plan is to use their runoff water as far as their fire suppression source.
No.
They're not gonna use any of that.
That cistern system is only for their use. It's not for fire protection.
What they could do is, because for me, the last thing I want to see done is that Route 20 line activated before we have sufficient flow. And I don't know if they understand that blow-off may cost them $50,000, $80,000 a year. And that may be, that may not be very digestible for them.
I believe they understand that.
Because what they could do is, what a lot of places do, is they could build a water tower at their location. And that could be filled with the potable water that we have. And then the backup source would be our public water line. And I believe that, I think Alpene's was rather agreeable that they didn't have a problem with activating a portion of the line, especially if it came from Charlton Center to the corner of Morton Station. If that's where the construction went, you've got someone who wants to connect. And in the meantime, they could be connecting those homes along the way, because there's quite a few connections there. And that line may be, with those connections, the flow may be viable enough. And/or the agreement that we could make with Valley Green was, until the whole loop gets connected, they'd be responsible for any age problems to where we would have to do a blow-off.
My only concern with having them connect to the 8-inch line, fire suppression is a semi-concern, but like you said, they can engineer it, they can design it. There's still, I believe they're talking to Kurt with what's even gonna be required for fire suppression in the greenhouses, because it's an unknown, because they have water and systems and all that. The timing is what makes me nervous, because we don't have necessary control over the contractor to be sure that they're gonna be, Valley Green Grow's gonna be investing, say, $20 million, $30 million in the next year. And if they have a drop dead date, say, we want water when we open, and if they get it to work miraculously for September of 2019, and Albanese Brothers gets stuck hitting ledge or something falls behind in our construction schedule and we're not there, then it can't happen. I'm not sure we wanna insert ourselves that way into that project. That's my only concern. Otherwise, it doesn't make a difference to me whether they come off the 8-inch line on Old Worcester Road or the 12-inch line on Route 20. It doesn't
Well-
matter, but the
Well-
timing is just a little nerve-wracking, that's all.
Are we inserting ourselves into that situation, or are we merely stating the facts of, we're getting the Old Worcester Road line up and operational, and when it becomes operational, you'll be able to do the following, and this is how you can do it. I mean, I wouldn't wanna give them a date based off someone else's schedule either and have that happen.
So, in initial discussions, we talked both ways. They're aware that the Old Worcester Road, the 8-inch line's coming, and the site plans that they presented show them connecting to the 12-inch line, knowing that the 8-inch line will be available at some time. So that can, as you all know, that can change. If their construction gets bumped back and some things happen there, then maybe they'll say, well, our timelines start to coincide now, and we'd rather tie into Old Worcester Road. But at this time, the site plan shows them that they have, I shared that information with them. They know both things are happening. And it's there, right now, they're choosing to come off of Route 20.
Well, that's their wish list, but we at the commission here made the decisions.
We do?
Right, and if they wanna put their wish list down there, that's fine. Because the thing is, well, like I said, it's, we need to do what's best for our system. And the 12-inch line at this time is not what's best for our system. In my opinion.
We would activate it from North Side Road downward and then cap it at some point right after where they're tying into
We
it.
wouldn't cap it, you just leave the valve closed. just like the valves.
Where,
are
that's
closed
what
now.
I'm getting at, I guess, where are the valves, the next nearest one?
There's definitely a
Ready?
valve at Old Worcester
Old
Road.
Worcester Road, yeah?
Yeah, there's definitely a valve there, so I don't know if there's one further up at a
There's gotta
hydrant.
be.
There's probably a few, wherever there's a hydrant, there's three-way valves, but other than that, there's probably just one at the intersection, so.
What are they looking for from us? I mean,
I think the planning
just an
board's
opinion,
just
or-
asking for if we had any concerns about the site plan. If you wanna take a formal vote about not wanting them to connect to Route 20 at this time, so I can let them know that, then that would be great, so they don't continue moving forward thinking that they can connect to Route 20. In my discussions, I told them Route 20 was a viable option if that's what they chose, cause it's there. If you guys, or if the commission doesn't want that to happen, let me know, and I can tell them that that's off the table at this time.
How long would it take us to activate that line?
We would just have to pressurize it and pressure test it.
Which has already been done.
My understanding is.
Yeah, no, you can
it
turn
has
it on
been.
right away, but the thing is, you can't operate it as a potable source. And if they were the only customers, and it was only for a short period of time, just to cover a time lapse between when the 8-inch line was active in front of their property on Old Worcester Road, that we could activate that line for fire suppression only for a period of time until the 8-inch was ready. But to do it full force, it's definitely a mistake, and it's,
I don't think the town of Southbridge will allow us to do it for fire suppression only. Because if there's a lack of pressure in the rest of the system, it could siphon that water back from that line into our system and cause water quality issues that way.
where's it gonna siphon back from?
From that 12-inch line that's full of water.
You mean, that gets siphoned in
Yes.
reverse? Right, unless you put a
So-
big, huge check valve in,
Well,
and it
that-
couldn't come
that's-
backwards. Well, if these guys wanna open and we're not ready, we have no obligation to service them with water at this point in time.
I'm not,
A
and
new
I'm not
business,
saying
of
we do.
course,
I'm-
we wanna do whatever we can and be as reasonable as possible. But, as much as I hate to say it, is the government clock just moves so slow.
Mhm.
Like, the water project was supposed to start 2017, according to ExxonMobil. But anyways.
Well, I personally would like to see the site plan before moving forward or making any recommendation
Understood.
in which way.
So the site plan's at the office. What I'll do is I will, because we don't meet again until the 22nd, I believe the next hearing is before that, I'll just forward, and I'll let Valley Green Grow know that the commission has some concerns about connecting on Route 20, just so they know, and maybe the best thing will be for them to come in and talk to you guys directly.
Absolutely, maybe
And that way there, they
maybe
can,
in the
you
meantime,
can
they'd
discuss
like
that.
to do the legwork and figure out all the what-ifs and, address anyone's concerns as far as water age goes, or this or that, or,
Yes. I believe they were working on that. Are there any concerns with the possible connection for sewer?
Why wouldn't we allow them to connect? Don't they have a right to connect the sewer? They bought the sewer line on Old Worcester Road.
under the conditions that we just discussed, being,
And
Just-
it depends on how many gallons. If it's over a certain amount of gallons, it's over 10,000, then we'll have to vote on it.
Okay.
But, they're in a butter. We have an active sewer line there. We really can't prevent them from connecting unless they have sewer that doesn't meet our standards.
Okay, well, they'd be categorized as a commercial or industrial customer, so you
Right.
wanna do some type of sampling program with them, like we're doing with the brewery. My guess is they're 250, 300 employees, what their flow would be, could be anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 gallons a day.
Hmm.
Actual flow.
Yeah.
Title V numbers will get you up probably to 7,500 gallons per day, so, okay.
And certainly something we can handle.
but again, that's part of all of what they're gonna propose.
Yes, no, definitely, it's very, I just don't want any of your concerns to get missed right now, so I'll just, again, I'll let Bill Scanlon and the planning board know that we have some concerns over the connection from Route 20. I'll let the people from Valley Green Grove know that those concerns came up, And as far as sewer goes, if it's just domestic wastewater, we should be fine with that. Okay,
Sounds good.
excellent.
Okay, superintendent performance review.
All right.
Did we see any paperwork for that? I know we talked about it a
Yes.
couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago, but I didn't see one come past me to write a review. Am I the only one that didn't see it?
It should be in the book.
It's attached, right?
So as part of my appointment letter, it states that on or near my one-year anniversary, which will be on October 10th, the commission shall perform a performance review. I spoke with Jessica Lorenz from HR, and she gave me some performance review forms that the town has moved over to using. The last time we discussed this, Jen asked me to do a self-review, which I did. It was, kind of talked about most of the projects I was working on, and then how I felt I was doing. So, I guess we can just move forward from there and see if you guys did any of your own, or if you have anything you want to add or change, and see where it goes.
Peter, where is the suggested form that the town has?
Town of Charlton Employee Performance Review Form.
Okay, that's the one.
I have filled out. I gave you
Okay,
I gave you
yes, I
blank
have,
copies of that
okay.
a while
So
ago.
you filled out.
Yes,
Now,
when we
the one-
discussed this last time.
The ones that I recall that we used in the past,
Yes.
like Steve and things like that, I mean, it was these questions, it was like 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Nice and easy, yep, they give you
Well,
questions
nice and
on
easy, the thing
performance.
is the grading, I
Yeah.
thought the grading was poor.
So we're not using those anymore?
Good.
This is what I've been given?
And,
So traditionally, in a typical performance review, there'll be goals created the year before, and those goals will be kind of memorialized, and then after that year, we go back and look at those goals and see how I did to accomplish those. When I first came on, we talked about doing goals, we brought it up at a couple of meetings, but I kind of recommended that we just use the matrix as a list of the goals to follow, so that gave me the direction of where to prioritize my time. So I did, and over the last, I think in May, we did the last update of where we are with the items on the matrix, and most of the items I've listed on that first review form page are all off of the matrix. They're pretty much the top 8 items that were on the matrix that I've been working on the past year. I think after this is done, we need to probably have a couple meetings to talk about what our goals will be to finish this fiscal year. So that direction is there for me to follow through with, and then when we do this performance review again, at the beginning of FY '20, we'll have some set goals that were there, and see if you can review me on whether or not I followed through with what your expectations were.
My thought, and I didn't get it on time to put it in the minutes, was to bring it up in an executive session, and then that way the 5 of us could discuss questions or anything like that, and then present a formal plan.
Peter, can this be brought up in executive session? I thought there was only certain things, such as, you know, a health issue or something like that, but just general performance, I think it's, I
I don't
thought it
think-
has to be
I agree with you too, I don't believe it can.
Jessica from HR said it could,
Okay,
because you're talking about character. Whether or not you choose to or not, I'm fine. I think it might come down to the person being reviewed, whether they want to ask for it to be an executive session or not. I think that might be something I could request, or if, depending on what's gonna be discussed, the commission can vote to do an executive session if it, because depending on how you talk about what I'm doing, it could kind of broach my rights as an employee and what might be said as far as discussing character. So depending on where the discussion goes can determine whether or not it should or should not be an executive session.
and fully understandable, that if in fact you're getting on the border or on the edge of something that is that sensitive, that needs to go into executive session. But on the whole, we're talking about performance.
Yeah.
So, whatever people want to do, it's fine with me.
And the superintendent report. You ready for that? Oh, no, I think Rob and I, we had heard the same thing prior to this, that certain things could not be brought up in
Right.
executive session.
Right,
And that's
yeah.
where we seem to be on the same page with that, but, like I said, if Jessica says we can, then that covers us, I guess, and it's up to Peter and the rest of us.
I think we do an executive session, I guess I'd like the board to kind of, yes, no, do this good, do this
Yes,
better.
maybe, go,
I have my
no
notes, I
go.
did not write.
Spend time here instead of there, that's all, a little bit of direction, and it would be great. If there's other items you want me to focus more time on that you think I'm not following through with, that you want to see happen instead of what has been happening?
So I asked Peter to do a self-review just to see where he thought he might be. And then I had done one myself on him. So I don't know if we all want to do our own on him and then discuss it. And if it's not executive session meeting time, then we do it at a regular time. But that was just my thought, so we would all have input.
I would like to do that as well. I apologize, and I asked you the question early on today. Originally, when I looked at the forms and it said July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, I said, well, I was only a member on the board for part of May and June. So naturally, being on for a month and a half, I'm not going to do an employee evaluation for that length of time. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but then I discussed it a little bit further with Peter, and he said, well, because his start date really was 1 year ago today, I'd actually be 5/12 of the year, so that's more of a legitimate time to be able to evaluate someone than a month and a half.
So you're
1
not
year.
getting out of it?
So, no, so I'm not, no, so I will participate if
Yeah.
everyone believes that's the correct path of what I should do. I think that's more reasonable than a month and a half, but with that said, I did not prepare anything, so, doesn't sound like other people have as well, so maybe if we can schedule a specific time to have this discussion on the next agenda, then
Sure.
I'll do my homework. So,
Is it possible for us to go to the appointment ladder and just look at what, first of all, what we are required to do relative to,
sure.
relative to these milestones that have been met, and also adjust the salary?
Sure.
So where it says the first one, bullet number 5, $2,000 annual salary adjustment when employee receives certification of operator and training certificate for both mass drinking water operated in OIT grade 2 water distribution license and a Massachusetts drinking water operator OIT grade 2 water treatment license.
That's already happened.
That's what I'm asking. So we're all set with that.
Correct.
We can
All
put
of
a
those have
We
been
can put a
completed.
check with that.
Yes, so I actually got my grade 2 treatment and my grade 4 distribution. So those are
Which
done.
at this point in time, there's no need for you to have those, but you have those, because that was a requirement of the job.
Correct, that was a requirement of this letter.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And then the next one down, $3,000 annual salary adjustment if and when the town Charlton Water Department becomes a consecutive water system, meaning Charlton takes over the water department operations, whether one in-house or two contracted out of non-municipal operating agency. The system will include but not limited to in-house billing and management. So, since we haven't become a consecutive water supplier, that's out
Correct.
at this time.
Hasn't happened yet.
Okay, all right. As far as the training goes, they have been approved and you participated in those classes?
Yes,
Okay. Per child personnel bylaw, you shall have 1 year probation. So that 1 year probation ends, is it October
the 10th
10th,
or the 9th, sure.
2018?
Yep.
Okay. Per child personnel bylaw, okay, that's, I'm being redundant. The Water and Sewer Commission shall set goals and objectives with you in the next 30 days. So were those ever set, Peter, back in,
No, we had a couple, agenda items for that, and we discussed it, and that's when I asked you to rank
Yeah.
the items on the matrix, because I asked you for
That's
goals,
what we- that's what we were
I asked
going
for
by.
goals,
we were going
and,
by the matrix?
there weren't any submitted, so then I decided to ask you to rank the matrix,
Yeah.
so I could reprioritize that.
Yeah,
And I took those rankings, and I put the matrix in front of you, for approval as quasi-goals. And again, I've been using that for direction on where to
Right.
focus my time.
And typically, most evaluations are July.
Yes,
Right.
we'll be on a fiscal year basis.
Yep.
And then the last bullet talks about doing this performance review.
so it's on or near
Yeah.
October 10th.
Near.
Yeah.
We're near. We'll be near on the 22nd.
We'll be near around
Yeah.
Christmas.
That's fine.
Sorry, yeah.
As long as I put it on the agenda, I guess I've kind of satisfied what I was
Okay,
required to do,
okay.
hopefully.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
so that's all. And again, part of that review is a salary review as well.
now, Paul, you were here, and Jen, you were also here. Do you remember seeing this letter with this stuff spelled out like this?
I believe so.
So you do remember seeing it?
I don't know if it was this exact letter, but we did
Well, no, we did
discuss all of
exactly.
all of these points.
Okay, it's probably me, I just don't recall it. Paul?
I don't remember it either, but it is dated October 4th, 2017. So there's a possibility we didn't get it,
Yeah, because it was,
but the letter's been out there since then.
yeah. Peter, we're not changing contract.
I don't have a contract.
So,
I remember a lot of the points that it brings up, but I don't
Yeah, yeah.
remember this letter specifically.
with the bullets, right.
I believe after my appointment, maybe at my first meeting, or maybe before I started at my first meeting, I came to a meeting to formalize the appointment, and these items were discussed.
Okay.
And then whether Robin took those points and created this appointment letter, or whether the points were discussed from this letter, I don't recall, but I'm pretty sure that,
Okay.
that
There
these
was
points
something.
were discussed at a meeting with the board
Okay.
after the interview process.
I'd like to make a motion that we initiate the, effective October 10th, the salary increase of $2,000.
It already happened.
He's
You
got
already-
that, yeah.
Well, it's not October 10th yet. You've already got the salary increase?
What
No,
increase?
It says here.
that was due to his receiving a certificate.
It's an
The-
adjustment.
The ones for my certification?
Yeah.
That increase has happened already.
Okay.
Because
So
I've had
it happened
my
as soon as you received
licenses, yes. I've had my licenses, I believe, since July.
Okay.
It's
All right,
an
then good.
adjustment,
Yes.
not an increase,
Correct.
so that it can,
So once I got those, I gave those to Jessica. She printed out an adjustment form.
Yep,
And it didn't have to come in front of the board because it was already in here. So Paul just had to sign it as department head,
okay,
because it was already obligated,
correct, by contract, yep.
our agreement. Yep.
So there's three things we need to do. Vote you off the probationary period after the 10th, right?
I think that might just expire on its own.
Okay.
I'm not sure that has to be a formal vote. I think once I get by the 10th, if there's no action against me, then probationary period's done.
Okay, set new goals
So
and
how many days do you
objectives.
have?
And that's counting them, I'm sorry.
Set new goals and objectives,
Yes, would be
Yes.
a priority.
okay. And then actually do the performance and salary review.
Yes.
So
Yep.
it needs to be an agenda item on next meeting.
And these are the forms that we use, that are attached.
Yes, I'll forward you some clean copies if you want.
I have these.
Those are the forms given to me from HR to use for this.
Okay,
And then once it's done, we'll just do one clean copy. I think it has to be signed by the department head, and, or the chair, once the commission votes it, and then that will go into my, employee file.
and we start on basically section 3.
No, you start on section 1, 2, 3.
Oops. What? I
Yeah,
thought that was you.
no, that's what he put.
Oh, I see, okay, right next to
As
it.
part of my self-evaluation, that's just what I put.
So we do the results,
I mean,
And then this page.
right?
section 2 probably would be where you, unless, yeah,
Strengths and development opportunities.
Okay. See at the top, it says individual contributor framework, right? So I had
Yes.
just, I had said, well, this is Peter's form.
Well, I asked him to do a
in the
self-appraisal,
self-evaluation.
right, but it says to be completed by rater, which would be us. We
Okay.
would be the raters.
Oh, I
We would be
gotcha.
the ratee,
Yep.
right?
Okay. Gotcha.
Thank you for
Very
doing that,
last
Peter.
Page, excuse me,
What's that?
the very last page, the signature page. Whose signatures go, I understand human resource signature.
that would be, human
Peter's
resources would be
Oh, human,
Jessica.
Yeah,
Upper level, I'm not sure. Supervisor would probably be the chairman, and the
Yeah.
employee would be myself.
okay.
I'm not sure, or I don't know if Robin has to
Robin.
sign or not, but it doesn't, whatever Jessica would recommend.
Yeah, then,
But I would think the chairman would sign somewhere on behalf of the board based on the decisions you make
Yeah.
as a board.
Okay.
So we will put that on the next agenda. And then probably do goals a different meeting after that, because I think,
Is it possible that we work on the goals and then, I mean, you're constantly working on stuff, but actually set goals in line with when you're going to be evaluated next, so it's, you know what I mean, those two fall in
Yes.
line eventually, so that
that's why I think if we,
when,
so if you think the goals that I listed here on, like what I said was ongoing, that I've been working on, if those are consistent with what you want me to continue working on, then we can just use those as goals moving forward for the remainder of the fiscal year. If you want me to add something or reprioritize those, then we can do that as well, and I'll just make those adjustments. Every board does goals differently. I know Board of Selectmen, and again, not to use them as what we want to be like, but when they do their goals, they go off-site in a workshop scenario where sometimes they have an outside facilitator come in, facilitate the discussion. They come in with their forms, individual forms filled out on what their 5 goals might be for the year. They have a roundtable discussion. The facilitator takes all that information, and they formulate a good set of goals that everyone had input on, that they ratify at an open meeting. Which, I mean, is good and bad. I think it's a nice exercise to do. It kind of gets you out of here and gets you thinking differently in a different setting. But depends how you want to go about doing it.
I'm fine trying it. I don't know about you guys.
So, we'll see how the evaluation goes and then,
Okay. Good luck, Pete.
thanks. I do have a couple things, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. I stopped and saw Donna, the finance director, today about our motions for our stabilization accounts. Our water stabilization account is fairly simple. We're gonna take $50,000 from retained earnings and put it into our new water stabilization account. For sewer, she has two accounts that are in a trust fund that she's not sure where it came from or why it's there, and she recommends that we transfer both of those into stabilization. She said both of those funds, the balances increase because they're gaining interest. Once it's transferred into the stabilization fund, it will continue to make interest. So her recommendation is to take these, the motion will be to, as you read her email, that we transfer the balance of the two trust funds into the newly formed sewer stabilization fund. The funds that she's identified here, she has the balance as of June 30th, so we transfer those two. And I'd also recommend that we transfer $200,000 from retained earnings into that stabilization account. And with the additional transfer of $117,000 that you voted last meeting for repair of RBCs 1 and 2, that would leave us approximately $500,000 in sewer retained earnings for the next year, which should be a comfortable cushion if anything were to happen. So I just wanted to present that to you, so, because these are the motions you're gonna see on the warrant that's printed.
In the very last sentence there, Peter,
Yes.
so that's gonna move to the sewer enterprise fund?
Yes, she didn't wanna itemize it into the salary account, because that would increase our salary account by that amount, which we don't need. We're not
No.
underfunded.
No.
So we'll go into the enterprise fund, which will inevitably show up as retained earnings the following year. So if there's no questions on that, then everything else on there should be as we have discussed in the past.
Okay, and just to go over again, for taking money out of the stabilization account, transferring it into another one of the accounts, what's the process?
Town meeting, 2/3 approval,
2/3.
because it's coming out of a stabilization account. So it's a little more protected.
Well, a little more protected, also a little more, more difficult if we decide something. But again, the townspeople say, if 51% say no, or
Yes.
say yes, then that doesn't work. We need 67%
Yep.
to say yes. Because if we don't have it in stabilization, we can't get interest,
It just sits in retained earnings, which is kind of in no man's land.
but that retained earnings is a no interest.
I don't believe so, no. Because it's not identified as funds anywhere. And from that stabilization account, we could take a portion of that and put into CDs to try and collect more interest or use the money differently as well. So if we're gonna have $1.2 million sitting there, we could take half of that and ask Donna to put it into a 6-month CD.
Doesn't the town treasurer automatically do that?
I don't believe, no, because the town treasurer is not gonna commit that money to where you can't get it. Because if need be, say we got our NIPD's permit and we had to do some massive expansion, we could call for a town meeting in 2 weeks and say we need to get approval to spend $1 million of our stabilization account next week to do this upgrade. Or if some catastrophe happened and we had to do some repairs, we can get that at short notice. You don't want someone committing that money without your knowledge of, it's there, but you can't touch it for 6 months.
And again, not to be redundant about the government clock, things just move so slowly. I think we'd have plenty of time to realign those funds.
Again, that might be a little bit of an extreme scenario, but
Yeah.
we don't know what's gonna happen. There could be, something major could fail at the plant where it's a $300,000 repair. We have to get those funds from somewhere. And if that stabilization account's tied up in a CD or something, then we won't be able to get it.
Right, again, I'm just recalling in past years to where the treasurer would make 90-day commitments, 60-day commitments, 180-day commitments. Very rarely was it a 360-day.
I'm not sure if Joanne's doing that at this time.
Yeah.
Or I don't believe Donna is. I believe that
With the
would fall
general
under the
fund, that's a
collector.
different story.
Yeah, yes and
That's
no.
more their department.
Yes. Yes, correct. That's their job as, on behalf of the general fund, is to do that.
Yeah.
At the direction of Robin and the Board of Selectmen, so.
Yeah.
I'm not
But
sure,
not on
I'm not sure this board has given them that direction,
Yep.
or would want to.
Perfect.
So, one last thing, if we could.
We're pushing it.
What's that? I know, it's not 8 o'clock yet. You gotta give me till 8.
I'm only
Somebody
kidding.
doesn't get one.
What you have in front of you is just a,
Okay.
is just a summary from Peter Newton, letting you know how the pump test went. I believe I emailed this to you earlier today as well, but just for your review and just to see if you had any questions about what took place. But Peter's gonna review the data over the next week or so and get us a report. Hopefully he can come to our next meeting and make a recommendation and fill you in on what his thoughts are on the possibility of that being a good, yielding well.
It doesn't look very good, Peter.
Mediocre. It depends, it really depends on how he interprets the data. First flush, it's marginal, at best. Again, towards the end, I believe he talks about, you're not gonna do just one 8-inch or one 12-inch well and get 200 gallons per minute. You're gonna have to do 3, 4, 6-inch wells and try and get 40 or 50 gallons per minute from those, so that it kinda spreads it out in the aquifer. So he thinks because the aquifer recharges so quickly, it's large, but it's thin. So it's not like we have 30 feet of gravel that's full of water that comes through fairly quickly, you can just take out at one spot. But if we did 4 or 5 different wells, we could get the same result, just a little bit differently.
And there was no concern about the water regenerating into it from the surface?
No, because, again, the layers that we drilled through to get there was some tight clay that it's not, and in that 48 hours, the well that was pumped in I don't think it went back into the aquifer, and Peter's pretty comfortable with that. And again, this is just the initial test to know if we want to move forward to the next step, to spend some more. And again, it's all about money. This was a little bit of money to see if we want to spend a lot of money to really keep looking at this site.
And I guess I shouldn't mention it, but the well that they found 12 years ago that was pegged at 275 gallons a minute,
Yes.
yeah, but what was that, pumping indirectly from the lake?
That was probably 75 feet from water. I was just looking at the report earlier today.
The issue with that is floodplain, right?
There's two issues. One was floodplain, and two, the ExxonMobil pipeline was in the 400-foot radius. Where the ExxonMobil pipeline crosses the water is in the 400. I think that was part of the larger issue.
They won't just move that?
So, but whether that well was under the influence of surface water, I don't know, Rob. And that test it wasn't a long-term pump test like this. I think that's when they just drilled the well and then they just blew air down it to see how much water came out. So that wasn't
There's artesian wells, in fact, I have specific knowledge of one.
Yes.
That was 50 gallons a minute.
there's plenty of those.
And then.
Do you want to draw 200,000 gallons a day from there and not plan on it being contaminated for one reason or another?
Well, that's what a lot of towns do,
And they,
you know, and they
And they're
have the
hitting-
crossed all the time.
yeah,
Unlike, what was it, Millbury,
right.
they had the, was it pure chlorate
The fluoride from blasting.
from blasting. And there's wells that are east from here, artesian wells of over 100 gallons a minute.
I think, granted, we all know well drillers will tell us that they know, we can identify where there's plenty of wells that will
Yeah.
pump 100 gallons, 50, 80, 100 gallons a minute. 100 gallons a minute is 140,000 gallons per day.
Is it that, is it up to, I thought it was about 100 would equal 100,000. You gotta put the safety factor in there and all that other stuff.
Well, again,
Yeah,
if,
okay.
straight
That's
numbers,
fine, yeah.
straight numbers, it's 1,440 minutes in a day, so. So it comes down to, and then the property also has to have the right amount of
The protected
acreage to
radius
do
and
your
all that,
protection,
right.
so. But again, the bedrock wells, not knowing where it's coming from, not knowing where the aquifer gets its supply from, we know there's radon anywhere out east in town, we know there's all sorts of problems wherever we look, so. You start pulling 200,000 gallons a day, you just don't know where it's coming from and what you're gonna get. But the gravel pack well, you can somewhat identify it and know where your
Right.
recharge is coming from.
Yeah.
But again, it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with for a recommendation when he
Mhm.
completes his review of the data, so.
Yeah.
Other than that, all the other projects are moving forward. Really don't have much more of a report than that, so. Any questions?
Just one more comment, again, averaging 30 gallons a minute. Now, we're not going anywhere near that.
That was limited, it's a 4-inch well. It's a 4-inch PVC well with a 3-inch pump in it, so there's quite a bit of
It's
head
limited
loss.
by the pump.
That's limited by the pump in the screen, that's not limited by, we could, if you wanted, and that's where the next step is gonna be. Do you wanna go in and drill a 6-inch well and be able to pump 150 gallons a minute and see what happens?
Yeah.
We just want, because the initial pump test when they drilled the well didn't satisfy that if you pumped it for an hour, it wasn't gonna suck it dry. This was to let us know that, okay, we can pump consistently 30 gallons a minute for 48 hours, and the level of the aquifer, the static
just
level
constantly-
dropped but stayed there, so.
Constantly raising the bar and jumping over
Yeah.
it, to see if you can. That's the only way to find out what's gonna happen. Pump it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just not looking promising.
Well, at some point in time, it may not. Maybe this is it.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe if you identify other areas in town, you'd rather do some research, we can still look at this property, know it's a possibility for future, and decide if you wanna exercise your option or not, and
It might,
spend some of the money we have remaining to test other sites at this
and
time.
maybe it doesn't come down to one site, because we don't put
Right.
all our eggs in one basket and say, we're gonna define ourselves as, this is our water source, and things change with water, so potentially, you have one water source that goes bad, no bury, done. Then what? Go begging back to another town and say, hey, you know, we dissolved our relationship with you, but we'd like to start going out again, you know? So,
And I was gonna talk to Peter about that as well, but ask him if he sees other areas in town where we should, taking what we have for knowledge now based on Buffinville, set that aside, maybe put that on the back burner. Still, you have to decide whether or not you wanna exercise your option to purchase it or not, which, might be worth it, and it might not be. And maybe do some other drilling in other areas of town where there's other gravel deposits that are known of, and search other properties.
what, well, I guess one of the things I'd like to find out about is the procedure. If you knew of a location in town, you said, here's the location, what's the procedure? And
Yep.
about going about that.
Just, in the past, it's just let the engineer know of the parcel, let them do a kind of paper analysis of it, vet it, whether it's accurate or not. If they think it's accurate and the funds are available and the commission approves it, they can go and do the drilling there if the property allows them. That's how it's been done in the past. That's how, again, we did quite a bit of drilling on Nyland's property. I think we've been out on.
So it's always
We've
been-
been on McDougal's property.
It's always been full cooperation with the owner.
We do have the
No.
power of eminent domain.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's been full cooperation. I think we've identified areas and talked to property owners who are willing, and that's how we ended up there.
Yep.
I'm not sure we've had full cooperation everywhere we wanted to go.
Okay.
So. But yeah, I mean, we'll know more when the report comes out and can
Mhm.
make those decisions then.
Okay. Excellent.
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
Second.
Chairman?
Second, all those in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
Thanks, John.